Fíjese que en ese momento, cuando estalló la cuestión, no pude conseguir una ametralladora y no tuve más remedio que fajarme con este riflito 22. Ja, pero viera usted, así como lo ve, todo humildito, efectivo el rifle, enemigo que se asomaba, enemigo que me volaba.
Un tiro 22 que sale desde el primer corazón torturado, da en el blanco, da en el blanco. Es más certero que las balas disparadas sin amor, sin odio. Es más certero que las balas disparadas sin amor, sin odio. Sin amor, sin odio. Sin amor, sin odio. Tiro 22 que sale desde el primer corazón torturado, da en el blanco, da en el blanco. Es más certero que las balas disparadas sin amor, sin odio. Es más certero que las balas disparadas sin amor, sin odio. Sin amor, sin odio. Sin amor, sin odio. Sin amor, sin odio.
The threat of mass death hovered ever closer in the world. Economic uncertainty increased each day, and a political order reigned which had as a central theme the destruction of all separate existence, of all difference, until the earth seemed dominated by two superpowers, each of which presented alternative systems of subordination to its citizens. This was manifested in a growing domination by central governments, whose police powers eventually infiltrated the lives of their peoples. All of these efforts in order to defeat the enemy, and each was an enemy. As every freedom was crushed to make way for greater security, so was diminished the variety of life, the autonomy and difference of choices and behavior in general, until the masses, whether Soviet or American, became stultified by the terror of the insecurity of their lives, lacking as they were in expectation, and this was exemplified in Poland, where rebellion led to nothing as there were no other choices. Into this void there grew a movement of individuals driven by the need to determine their own fate and enraged by the limits society now presented. By the initiation of their free association and their lack of dogma and formal organization, these architects of what was to be a thorough transformation of social relations created a wave of change, at first small and then large, in art and music and then the workplace, until their discussions became councils and their communications mass convocations that nearly overnight became a political force that overwhelmed the ancient regime. Anarchist revolutionaries among these masses forged environmental, consumerist, and syndicalist unions, as well as using the electoral system. Every possible sincere and democratic method was tried. Every cultural activity seen as a tool towards a symbiotic path for humanity away from disaster. At the end of years of struggle and organization, these confederations had memberships in the millions. Using nonviolence, civil disobedience, paramilitary self-defense, referendum and recall, massive social and economic transformations had been inaugurated. The most drastic entailed a constitutional referendum to dismantle the military. The day following the referendum, where 70% of the nation voted in favor of the plan, the Pentagon initiates a counter-plan for self-preservation. A grimacing blueprint of mass annihilation, its success was based on trust, an element its cohorts possessed little of. The plan is a mock war played real for the people of the United States, a staged performance of a nuclear accident of political necessity no one could prevent. At the same time, in order to create terror and mass confusion so they could gain complete control, they are to unleash biological and chemical warfare on their own people. But to ensure the deal, they need the aid and at least the confidence and collusion of the real enemy, the Soviets. Presented with this plan, the Central Committee of the Soviet Communist Party studies the psychological profiles of the Joint Chiefs, the regional commanders, and the field generals of America. The intelligence flood stirs deep fears and uncertainty in this petrified bastion of the once floodgates of change and upheaval.
Certainly.
The prestigious member of Conservative Revolution points out,
We must avoid America plunging into premature social revolution.
nodding in agreement, the representative of generations of servile miners whose momentary but heroic radicalism was long ago extinguished in sacrifice to the Red Motherland, continues,
The anarchists have proven little. We cannot assume their network following consists of true and committed revolutionaries. Among their ranks, we have always seen clothed the waiting opportunists of narrow individualism.
However,
enters the voice of millions of dutiful Russian factory workers whose hopeful extremism was shattered at Kronstadt.
this may be an American possibility within which a truly democratic movement can form and seize power.
Rumbling from the far end of the huge table, with inflections that towered through the room, the conscience of the unmoved rural proletariat booms a preamble of desire and suspicion.
If the opportunity is near for their people to rise, they will rise no matter what we do. We must weigh what effect this will have on our people as well. But most disturbing is the chance that the American intelligence community is trying to fool us, that our data is wrong only in part, that they are the instigators of this radical movement, and that this plan to stop it is nothing but an offensive against us. I want to send the word of warning and to put their designs to life, and thereby checkmate our action. The rest must be done without shade by all.
An agreement is made and is sent to the military's plans, but no one is deceived, and the secrets are known by all. The American military, aware that they are betrayed, cannot act. The Soviets do not help, but the notice of the coup arrives, and the 3-day mobilization of revolutionary forces follows. Always in defense, they await attack like the Minutemen at Lexington. But the first shot is not fired, and as the 4th day dawns, the anarchists awake to find all resistance gone, all government abandoned. A vacuum exists. Before they can assemble for propaganda and strategic purposes, posters appear nationwide calling for neighborhood meetings to elect delegates for a national congress based on proposals to be developed by the meetings on community, regional, and national needs. All references are along direct democratic lines. That day, one of the anarchist organization's members is taken forcibly on the streets by armed attackers and brought to a former government building now no longer abandoned. Inside, armed men and women are busy at work, the perpetrators of these spontaneous posters. The anarchist is taken to a room where a man sits at a table. No one speaks. The entire sequence is silent. Neither the anarchist nor her abductors remark or communicate. The abductors leave the two alone. The room contains the furnishings of a bureaucratic office. The lighting is bright, neon, penetrating. The silence is solid, sticky, and has an aroma of sound so thick that in a moment our anarchist felt its weight, a burden crushing her.
Your curiosity is sated?
It is whetted. The mystery's location only is solved.
She turns her head a little to indicate the direction of the activity and shivers at the coolness of the room, as her dress and boots were meant as sufficient clothing for a short errand, not the icebox the interrogation was taking place in.
Certainly you didn't think the CIA would turn the country over to a group of idealistic revolutionaries. You didn't win a talent show. Your performance was only buoyed by events and the people's desires. Even Lenin was aware of that in his own time.
The man almost sneers, his face motionless, but his body mobile in his chair. His dress as usual, tie, shirt, and sport coat. His age falls in the mid-40s.
So you take credit for everything?
No, we're simply guides, monitors at the least. And in this case, we had to hold you to your principles.
Interesting. You engage in interventions to create situations.
Let's not engage in petty ideological rivalry. The point is that your organization is no less a party than the communists. Despite your democratizing principles, you maintain a relationship of great influence with the libertarian movement.
So I am kidnapped for an official analysis of anarchist practice by the remnants of a lame duck government.
Don't be sarcastic. This is a grave situation. The country's defenses are now unprepared at the least. If our Soviet counterparts see this as chaos rather than an evolutionary experiment towards strength, they will act, and neither of us will benefit.
So we are monitored on every level.
Yes, the ebb and flow are carefully balanced. The strongest, of course, will win out. But it's not easy to determine which variation possesses the greatest advantage. We couldn't let you ruin it. What if you went about settling old arguments with political enemies like they did in Spain in '36, or against capitalist owners? We had to make sure this revolt broke with the past, even the recent past. You have been smart, moving in new directions for the anarchist movement. You created an efficient yet humane organization.